Okay, good morning, Oops, my camera is off. All right, great. Welcome. Excited to be in the call this morning. Before we started, anybody who wants to share anything exciting, something that happened or is going to happen, or something that you want to say, very optimistic to make sure that we are on fire after we leave this morning. Anybody wants to share? Could be anything, by the way. I'm not putting you in the spot saying that has to be super.
George,
Hey, Kenyon, welcome back.
I just wanted to say I'm back. 30 days on a mountain was
I
a
know.
lot. It was a lot, but it was soul searching, fun, and I'm back. It's time to get to work.
Perfect. Yeah, welcome back. Yeah, welcome back. Okay. Well, today is going to be interesting. Something that I wanted to do in the past, and I think today is the right time to do it. Is actually most people don't know the full extension of my story, how I started in network marketing. And and the reason I wanted to talk to you about that because it has several aspects of why it's so important to do certain things, certain basics that still apply today, even that happened to me in the early 90s, 91, 92. And one of the things is as you know, I came to the U.S. I came hired by a company, and that was we were doing in bringing investors and doing investment groups mostly, but also individual investors in the U.S. And I was flying back and forth almost every week. Imagine every Friday or Thursday, I was taking a plane and to Florida, and I was many times I was actually flying with the investors, and I was doing that for a few months until one day the company that has an office in a city called Cape Coral in Florida, and those of you that know Florida, well, probably I'm sure you know where it is, Cape Coral. And they tell me, well, it would be much easier if you are working from here because flying back and forth, first of all, cost the company more money, and many other things that happen. Also, that they were saying, I remember one time I was supposed to be there and we couldn't get there because there was a hurricane, and not in the place where I was going, but in they canceled all the flights going there because the path of the hurricane, etc. And then one day they said, you know what, it's better, and then they moved me to the U.S. We have a beautiful home, by the way, by the water, etc. But anyway, one day the company disappeared. And the way that disappeared is I just keep calling, nobody answered. That was Friday, and I thought, well, maybe they decide to close earlier. And then on Monday, I walked to the company because it was very close. It was only like 3 blocks away. And as those of you that know me, I love to walk. And I went to the company, and everything was gone, computers and everything. Imagine. And I said, darn, what the heck happened? Um, uh, and then it's when we almost moved to Miami Beach, that where I have family that came here, and many of my cousins were born in the U.S. My uncle has properties, etc. But then I thought, if I move to Miami, I'm never going to speak English. For those of you know, they are part of Miami where everybody speaks Spanish. And that's why I decided to stay where I was in that part of Florida. At the time, there were not many English speaking people. I started doing all kind of jobs, etc. Eventually, I got into real estate, and I started doing very well. I read a book called Nothing Down by Robert Allen, and that inspired me. We start in chapter 4. They were talking something called the option blueprint. I think it was chapter 4. And I got so into that, the option blueprint, that to a point that at one point we were controlling over 100 properties using the option blueprint. And I'm not going to go in details what is that, etc. But for those of you in real estate, probably know that what I'm talking about. And we started doing very well. I say we start because one of people I met, a partner, was in an auction where they were selling lots, and we became very good friends. And together we started doing this. But anyway, but then the market crash. Have you ever heard of market crashes? And I said, what the heck is happening? I didn't know what we were going to do. I was in so much debt because I didn't realize there were more market crashes. I was thinking that we were going to keep moving the land so quick, the way that we were moving it. And that's when uh, I found network marketing. But how do I find it? Nobody called me. They said, George, I have a great opportunity. Or before that, some people have invited me to some meetings, and I'm not going to say the name of the company. And some of you were in that company. The company started with A, and they were doing presentation. But at the time, my mind was totally shut down. I didn't believe, I didn't understand network marketing. And that's why people were calling me, inviting me into this. And I remember they didn't tell you what was the meeting about. Some of you that have been in that company remember. And one day, I remember I was doing certain things, and a friend of mine called me and said, "George, we have a meeting in my home," and then I say, "Okay, I'm going to go there, but it's the company A." He said, "It's not." When I was there, was the company A. But anyway, but that's why I didn't understand network marketing at all. But one day I was so desperate, I was reading a magazine called Success Magazine that many of you probably are familiar, and they have an article talking about network marketing by a guy that wrote the Wave 3 of network marketing. And that was an amazing book, by the way. And he was talking about where network marketing was going, and he was the author of Wave 3. What did I do right away? I got that book. And I say, okay, I had to find a company on network marketing. I called my friend that was in a restaurant business, one of the people that called me, but he was not doing it anymore. I said, okay, I have to find something. And I start calling every ad that I felt that was network marketing. And the reason is because in the article we were talking how some people were prospecting, etc. One of those ads, a person answered, and he was in California. And he said, and I was in Cape Coral, Florida. Now, totally opposite coast. I talked for a little while to the guy, and he said, "Okay, I'm sending you a video." And I said, "Perfect." And say, "How long is it going to take?" He said, "Maybe take 5 days or something like that. I'm going to send priority 3 to 5 days." Okay, cool. And the reason I'm saying this is very important because the guy sent me a video, but this is what happened. This call was like about 11 o'clock in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the same day, somebody knocked at the door with a video. I said, hold on a second, that's California. At the time, there was no overnight, there was no Amazon, there was no anything like that. What happened? Well, he found out that he had somebody in Cape Coral only 1 mile away from where I live. And then he brought me the video. I watched the video, and the video was a head moving, just showing the numbers in the back and with some testimonials. 1.5 hours, but he chose something. Remember, I am a numbers person that got my attention. If you bring five, and they bring five, 25, and those five, 25, 125, and then 625, and then those five is 3,100, and let's round it up, and five more is
Yep, you're
15,000, and
right.
then five more is 75,000. And he started going through those numbers, and I was fascinated. Say, whoa, you sponsor five people and you can end with 75,000 people or more because you had all that. And they say, if only 10% of those stay, 7,500 people buying 100 points in products, can make a fortune. And guess what I say? Sign me up. And I got into the company. This part of the story I never said. I'm going to say a second point that's very important. But this part, I got excited. I signed up, and I start telling every person that was around me. But something happened. I went to on Barbara Walters. Everybody remember Barbara Walters? Came on TV saying that the company I was in was a scam. Can you imagine starting the business with Barbara Walters telling everybody on TV that the company I was a scam? Holy cow. What happened? I stopped in my tracks. I couldn't build it. And nobody, that company survived, by the way. That company is Nu Skin. For those of you that know what I'm talking about, Cinematics was in that company. But it was no scam. It's just sometimes the press exaggerate. And for several months, you couldn't build. I said, but I said, the concept, the company works, the concept works. I had to find another one. I start calling again ads. And then there's a recording, a 3-minute recording talking about amino acids and how the amino acids are the future and it's going to create many millionaires. And then say, by the way, remember, this is very concept, talking about an ingredient products, but they were talking about creating many millionaires. That got my attention. I want to be one of those millionaires. And by the way, I called many ads. I called probably over 50. Only 5 people follow up. And these were people that were paying for those ads in the USA Today, in the magazine, in the newspaper. And of those 5, only 2 follow up more than once. And of those 2, only 1 follow up more than 5 times. Who do you think I signed up with? The person that follow up the most. That's a teaching lesson. It's a lesson. It's a lesson. Follow up is so important. But this is the kick. I barely could understand him because he was originally from China. He didn't speak English and his Spanish was very well, and his Spanish didn't exist. But the guy, because he followed up, this is what was in my mind. This guy really cared. I'm going to sign up with him. Now, the package to get him was $995. The biggest package was called the Paysetter program. I didn't have the $995 because I had spent in the other company my money. I didn't have money. And I didn't tell him because I thought if I tell him that I don't have money, he's not going to help me. That was in my head, by the way. And then what I did, I sold my microwave, my TV, and I went to the guy that I was working with in real estate that the whole market crashed. Because the market crash, he was starting to do renovating, etc., working in construction sites and mostly commercial. And I was working with him. That was one of my jobs. By the way, I have 3 jobs. 3 jobs. And then I called him, and he was telling me, I'm tired of all this. I said, I found something. He got so excited, and he said, I want in. And I said, I have a problem, and I'm short $300 to get my package. And he lent me the $300. Can you imagine the first person that you sponsor is going to lend you money? And this what happened. Of course, I got in. Now, I never told my upline, Steve Lee's his name, and you can search him. He's a millionaire today in network marketing. And at the time, by the way, he was starting out like me, the guy from China. That the guy I told him, by the way, because I wanted him to make sure that he was going to help me, I said, okay, I'm going to set up a goal and sign up a lot of people. I'm going to go crazy, doing whatever it takes. I call everybody in my church to a meeting at home. I have a video that they sent us that was super boring. But that's only the thing for the presentation. I told my friend, Mike, his name was, I'm going to have the first presentation at home. I called everybody from the listing that names I haven't, well, not everybody, like 100 people. And then I was ready for that meeting. Guess what? Oh, by the way, I borrowed some chairs from the church and I took it home because I thought I'm going to have at least 30 people. My friend called me, I can come, something happened, I have to help my dad. I said, okay. And I was waiting there with a tie, suit, everything. Nobody came. 0. Nobody. I said, oh, shoot. What I'm going to do? And then my daughters were there. Can I play? No, I'm going to do a presentation, but there's nobody here. I'm going to do a presentation. I put the video and I start talking to nobody. I did a full presentation, but I didn't quit. What did I do? I called different people, but the same list, by the way, because I didn't know too many people outside the church. And I started calling everybody, etc. My friend had to go back to New York for something. He was from New York, but he was living in Florida. And I was basically doing it by myself. And I said, okay, all right, I'm going to invite more people. I invited more people. I don't remember it was the same amount, etc. But this time we have 5 people that came to the meeting. And I said, great. I was with my friend, the guy in Hawaii, that he was from China. He said, okay, as soon as you finish, put me on the speakerphone on my phone. And then I tell them how excited I am and that you are really good to follow you, etc. I said perfect, but everything this and was hard to understand. But we were saying okay. Well, the meeting came, the presentation. I said, and let me introduce you the person that brought me. He's from Hawaii, living in Hawaii. He's originally from China. He saw the great opportunity. I was telling him amazing opportunity thing and then I call Steve, are you there? Yeah, Steve. He got so excited, started talking so fast that I think he was speaking Chinese because we couldn't understand what he was saying. He was excited, talking like for 5 minutes, and the only reason I found out that he finished because he said good night, and he hung up. Now I'm sitting there. Usually, the question that we have for closing, what do you like the most? I didn't know any of that. I just said, what do you think? And then something happened that I think happened only in the movies. Crickets. Crickets, crickets, crickets. And then one woman that was there, she was a physical therapist. She raised her hand and she said, I don't have a clue what she was saying. I don't understand you a lot, but you are so excited that I'm in. I like what I saw in the video. And the video was not the best. And then somebody else that's next to her said, you know what? If Peggy's in, I want to get in too. And then I signed up 3 people. Only 2 of them didn't sign up. But 3, my 3 people, my first 3. There's several things that I want to bring up. First of all, the first one was a totally epic failure. Nobody came. The other thing, I didn't have the money to get in, but I found it. The person that was talking to me, he never talked about any other packages. He said, if you can afford it, let me see if we can find another way. But this is the best way to start. I understood that part. And the reason I'm talking about, he was talking about business. I was talking about business. And remember, what excited me were the numbers. 5 bring 5 is 25, 125, 625, 3,125. Let's round it up, 15,000, 75,000. Then you get only 10% of that. You have more than 7,500 people. Everybody's ordering 100 points in volume. And let's suppose that you're getting only 4% of that. You're making a fortune. Of course, that was their numbers in my head. And I learned those numbers by heart. Now the pay plan didn't work that way because you had to build several legs in order to get to the higher position that was called chief executive. Chief executive, you have to have 10 chief executive yourself personally sponsoring your line. Chief executive was not easy. Each one has to have X amount of volume, and I launched for it. At the beginning, I was having a hard time getting people to chief executive because I didn't know how to build the business. Why? Because I started talking too much about the product. I learned too much about the product, and I thought that was the way to build. And many people were saying to me, you know what? You know a lot about the product, because I became the same way that I could be very into the product, into the numbers, I was very into the ingredients, into the amino acids, because that was the amino acids, the nutrition of the future, and I'm talking about all the amino acids, etc. And we were bringing people to the meeting, but I was not building the business. The business was not growing. Some people were buying, but it was not growing. I think my biggest check was like $300 in a month, because they pay weekly. That was my biggest. Until I went to a seminar, Bob Proctor seminar. And at the same time, Bob Proctor, a guy came to town that was not even, I was not in that company anymore. Remember, I was in Nu Skin before, but I was not in Nu Skin anymore, and I knew the guy was coming to town. Not to town, to Fort Lauderdale. I was in Cape Coral, as you know, it's in the other side of the coast. And anyway, I told, at the time I signed up somebody. Oh, by the way, I went to a flea market and I started getting business cards from everybody. And then I was calling people and said, I'm gonna call you from something totally off the wall. And I learned that, I don't even remember where to learn it from. And the person said, I'm not calling you, I met you at the flea market, and people like you make a lot of money in my business, and I'm opening this area. And most people say, I'm not interested, and they didn't even know what it was. But some people say, what is it? And one of them says, let's meet, I want to make money. Remember, business. And this was one of the guys had one of the tables, and I didn't talk to them there. I got the card. And then I found out this guy was going to Fort Lauderdale. I told him, "Do you want to go to Fort Lauderdale?" Sure. And his wife was in real estate, and I don't remember what he was doing, but he to make extra money, they have a table in the flea market every Saturday and Sunday. We went to there, and then there's all the speakers were coming dressed up the same way with ties and dark suits and talking about the future, etc. And then came this guy that changed totally my life. He came totally different, cowboy hat, jeans, leather jacket. He came with a chair, put the chair in the middle of the stage, and he said, "Many people, I cannot imitate exactly, but many people say, Jarnell, you are not professional." He was the only one that didn't wear a tie. He was in jeans, but expensive jeans. You could see expensive jacket and boots, cowboy boots, very expensive. But at the same time, he was totally different from the other ones. They say, "People, Jarnell, you are not professional. You are not wearing a tie." And then I say to them, "Let's compare checks." He was making over 100,000 a month. And then he says something, "You had to be yourself. You cannot imitate other people." I don't even, yeah, all these guys are good and I respect them, but I know them. I'm Jarnell. He keeps saying that. And I say, "Holy cow." I went back home. We went flying, I think 100 miles an hour. And then on Monday or Tuesday, a couple of days later, I found his phone number, or maybe we got it from there, and I called his office and because I wanted to buy his tapes. And then, but I called kind of late, and I said, "Well, probably nobody's going to answer." And the telephone was ringing, and then somebody answered, and I said, "Hi, I would like to buy the tapes." That, by the way, I still have those audio cassettes. I had to put them on. And he said, the guy said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Who I'm talking to?" "Oh, my name is Mark." "Mark who?" "Was Mark Janelle. You have to get me into the office. My secretary, everybody's gone, but I can take the order for you." And I was starstruck. And the reason I'm telling this story, because it's so important, the guy told me something first very interesting. I was not even in his group. I was not even in his company. And he said, "George, I know you're starting. Let me tell you what you have to do." And "Do you have paper and pencil?" "Yeah." And I start writing. We were for 30 minutes on the call. He didn't have to do that. Here was a guy that was making millions, and he was on the phone with me. And then he said, "Okay, I'm sending you the tapes, and I'm adding other tapes." And it was only like $59 or $49. Of course, he sent it, took like 4 days, priority mail, but the usual says 48 hours, but it took like 4 days. I got into those and I started doing presentations. My business started growing. I had the knowledge of Bob Proctor now, the personal development, because it's important that you believe in yourself. You set up goals. I set up a goal very strong. 30 days later, I was doing a presentation in my home with the guy that I met in the flea market. I brought 4 people to my home, and we were doing the presentation, etc. My daughter answered the phone, and I tell everybody that I know. "Okay," and my daughter said, "Okay, what's your name?" "Hold on, Mark Jarnell." When I heard the name Mark Jarnell, I stopped the meeting. I have to get this call. I went running, got the phone. The guy called me to say, "How was everything?" And I said, "I'm having a presentation here with 4 people. Put me in the speakerphone." And the guy said, "You know, I know even in George business, I don't even know exactly what George business, but I tell you one thing, this is the best business in the world. This is he called it the last bastion of free enterprise. Join. George is going to be a super leader." This guy didn't know me. I bought the tape from him, and I talked for a few minutes. And he said, "Thank you, Mark." I hung up, and everybody signed up. But anyway, there are several points that I want to bring to this. By the way, my business exploded. The company was going crazy. I got to my first $10,000 a month. And there are many stories that I can tell through the whole thing, because some of them are part of the comedy. I call it a network marketing comedy. Like, for example, I went to do my first presentation. They invited me to the first regional to talk for the first time. Well, before that, my group started growing really quick. And then they invited me to the first conference call. Conference call. There were no Zooms. Conference call. And then I was going to talk about the success. And then I got into a suit and everything. And this was a conference call. There was no video. I got in a conference. And then my favorite product was a product for focus that was for memory. I love it because I was very focused on that with that product. But anyway, and they asked me, "What's your favorite product?" Oh, I don't remember the name of the product, but it's for memory. I said, I remember. And of course, after a while, that was a joke. Other leaders that met me later say, "Hey, how's the product for memory?" But anyway, all these things happened. And my first time that I went to that event in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, they invited me to this regional. One of the people that were in my team, he has a motorhome. He was the mayor of Tallahassee, Florida. He was part of my downline. I didn't sponsor him, but somebody in my team sponsored him. And then he said, he found out about the Nashville. He said, "Come here to Tallahassee." And we went into his motorhome. We stopped in different areas, many multimillionaires from his Amway time. We went to these mansions in the Sound in Georgia, etc., that he was trying to prospect. And then eventually we got to Nashville, Tennessee. I was in my presentation. I get very nervous. And even today, I go to the bathroom before I go on stage. I've been doing that for all this life, my life. And then they put my microphone, etc. But guess what? At the time, the microphones, I have control. They couldn't turn it off from the stage. I was in the bathroom with the microphone on. I didn't know that. And the director of Salta, by the way, I'm trying to get him here of the company, start knocking, "George, turn off the microphone." I was in the bathroom by myself. I don't know what happened. I know when I got onto stage, there was a big group. There was like 900 people. It was just under 1,000. Can you imagine? But I still did my presentation. Some funny thing happened in the presentation too. I'm not going to go into details. But what I mean, this is very important. First of all, I was looking for network marketing. I was calling ads. Can you imagine how many people are looking for ways to make money that are around us? And it's why we had to talk to everybody. The second part, when I called the ads, the guy that I signed up was a person that followed up the most because I thought he cared about me. Of course, he wanted to sign me up. And but at the same time, we became super friends. We learned together, and there's a podcast that I always say I have to find the link where he talked about this when he began in network marketing. He's talking about that great guy in Spanish that he couldn't understand, and that was me. And actually, he named me in the podcast. But anyway, the thing is that the important thing that I never quit. I start talking to everybody. My first presentation, nobody came. I still did the presentation. By the way, I'm not saying that I'm a genius or anything like that. I just didn't quit. And one of the reasons I didn't quit because people start telling me that this business didn't work. And since I was a kid, I was a contrarian. I remember my mom used to tell other people, if you want George to do something, tell the opposite. Because when somebody say, "Oh, you cannot do this," on purpose, they were doing it because they knew I was going to do the opposite. "Oh, yeah, I'm going to show you." And that's the way that probably my mind works. But anyway, when people were telling me around that this business doesn't work, people, it's a scam. Even without going much, I was called to the office of the bishop of the church, and some of you know the story. And he told me that I better quit that thing because I was calling people in the church, remember? Quit that thing. Those things are a scam. As a matter of fact, if you don't behave the way you're supposed, you are going to end in hell. That's what he told me. Guess what? When I got out, I got upset. Not with him. I was going to say, you know what? I had to show that this business worked. I don't care what anybody say. I don't care who say that. I know it works because I've seen people that succeed. And I keep doing it. But so many people were saying me, this thing doesn't work. As a matter of fact, I was in a line they have a function in an ice cream line. I love ice cream, by the way. And I heard some people that were from, they didn't know that I was in the line. And I say, did George call you about that kind of pyramid? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't go to those things. Don't work. And I could hear what they were saying. Of course, when they saw me, they got quiet. They didn't know if I actually heard what they said, but I did. Then you're going to have opposition. You're going to have up and downs. I'm very down. That company one day start having problems, then they file for bankruptcy. I left before. But I didn't quit the industry because I knew it works. I went to another company where, oh, by the way, in this company, I met a guy that changed my life. His name is Jimmy Smith. He was a guy coming to my room, to my home all the time. And he was in Pennsylvania. He flew to Florida to find out who was this crazy guy that was in a video because somebody put me on in the company video that barely he could understand. And this guy, his name is Jimmy Smith. He's a legend. He's the guy that at 74 started in 75 started in the other company and became a multimillionaire. But at the time he was totally broke. And he wanted to meet me. And we had a long conversation. We became great friends. And he was the one that sponsored me in Isogenics. Because then when we left that company, he left first and then everything reverted. He was my sponsor this time, but I sponsored him. But anyway, this is the thing. Persistency and never quit. Always you do follow up. There are people out there that they are looking for ways to make money and you never know who they are. My first leader was not my boss, the one that sponsored, but somebody that he sponsored. The guy that I sponsored, he moved back to New York and he stopped doing the business. But he sponsored a guy that was very successful in the cabinet maker for new homes. Remember, real estate crash and his business was falling apart. I have many people from the real estate business that was sponsoring too, because they knew, because as soon as I learned the numbers, guess what? I was talking to numbers people, real estate people, mortgage people, insurance people. My friend introduced me to this guy, cabinet maker, and he introduced me to more real estate. He became my strongest leg at first. My second strongest leg was the guy that I met at the flea market. Then there was another guy that it was the cook in a restaurant, in a very popular restaurant in Sanibel Island, where I worked as a waiting tables before that. I met him. And then the next one, there was a magazine, business magazine, and I'm going to close with this, very important. I wanted to have more leaders, people that make money. And I found in a magazine people that a guy that was advertising his network marketing company. Was called Eureka. I don't know how many of you are timers. Eureka was growing very fast, eventually crashed. But and the guy was promoting it, and I knew Eureka already. Somebody heard somewhere that was not doing well, and I called this guy. The guy happened to be in Palm Beach, and when I got the guy in Palm Beach, I found out that he owned a hotel in Palm Beach. He was not a poor guy, but he was a business guy. And he told me, okay, I didn't meet him. This was on the phone. I called, by the way, many people, only one answer it was positive. But only one, you're looking for one person. This guy sponsored over 50 people in a period of 2 weeks. And all of them were business owners, real estate people, you see, business people. And my business exploded. Now this guy has a terrible personality and was turning off everybody. But I said, holy cow, I had to connect with the people that he's sponsoring. And I connect with a guy that he sponsored. He was a pilot for Delta. And the guy, he liked me a lot and he invited me to a meeting. And he lived in Sunrise in the east coast of Florida. And then he invited me to a meeting. He said, George, I'm going to bring you to a meeting, introducing to. And when I was there were 40 people. Again, pilots, real estate people, business owners, actors. Gosh. And then that guy became exploded and then became my strongest leg because they grew really fast. And it's sad because the company short while after that filed for bankruptcy like 8 months later. But my group went after the first 8 months, 9 months, I was not doing much. In a period of 7 months, I got over 8,000 people. Exploded. But I was out there talking to people. And I didn't know as many people as most of you. I didn't have my high school reunion. Yeah, I have it, but in South America, I didn't have the connections. I didn't have as many people. Because by the way, I don't say that to impress you guys and say, oh, George is a genius. No, I wanted to prove people that this business works. It was not only the money that I wanted to make. But anyway, I just want to make sure here, it's persistency, consistency, never give up, and learn. Because I told you about the book. I skipped that part. My friend sent me a book. The guy from Hawaii. He sent me this book, That was How to Be the Best That You Can Be in MLM by John Kalench. And as soon as I found that John Kalench was coming to a city close to me, like it was 4 hours, I went to his seminar. Eventually, we became friends. And we followed that book like a Bible in business, step by step. Every place that I wanted to learn something. I wanted to learn the business. I wanted to show people that this was successful. Fast forward many years, and I was doing really well. I moved to Utah, but I was doing super well already. And then the guy, remember, that told me that probably was going to go to hell, start telling everybody, yeah, I knew George was going to be successful because he found out what I was doing. What the heck? Why did he say that? Of course, I didn't say anything, but one of his kids became part of my downline. That was interesting. Years later. But anyway, I just wanted to tell the story because we are going to have challenges. We are going to have problems. Our business is going to crash. Many times when I was building, I was losing people. I lost, when I started building in the company, I make millions, I lost a whole line. My check was starting to go up. I got over 14,000 a month, and suddenly I lost a whole line that makes my check to go way down. But I didn't say, oh gosh, this business doesn't work. No, I was challenged by the president of the company in an indirect way. She told me she called me on the stage and he said, George is going to be the next millionaire by convention. This was in January. And I was very excited. I didn't know exactly why she knew that. And then after the stage, I asked her, how do you know? He said, how do you know my numbers? Oh, I don't know your numbers. I know you can do it. I said, what? How can I find how close I am? Because that's accumulated $1 million. I was in that company only for a couple of years, 3 years. Well, call Patty, and she's going to tell you, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. That was in that company, we didn't know everybody. And I called Patty, and she told me that I was short by, I don't remember, 300 and something $1,000. And I called the vice president of the company and say, you were wrong. You said that what do you mean I was wrong? Yeah, you said I was going to be millionaire by convention. Last year I didn't make $300,000. And that's what I need to hit the $1 million accumulator. 310,000, 340. I don't remember exactly the number. And then you know what she say? Good. You're going to make money in a shorter time. Have fun and hang up on me. Of course, that was a motivation, I guess. And I said, shoot, how do I do it? And when for those of you that had read the book, 10X is better than 2X, when it's a huge goal there set up to you, or the magic of scaling, that's the second book, and then they have a brand new that said, time is a tool. He said, when there's a huge goal, you are going to focus on the thing that gets you to that goal. She announced it in front of many people in January. I have to show that that's going to happen. I called first my top leaders and I said, how high you want to go in the next 5 months? Let's do this. Well, let's go to the next level. When somebody say, I want to go blank, okay, let's go to the next one. Not to that one. Let's go higher than that. And we went to everybody to work. And then what happened, I was saying, and I've been challenged several times on things like that. Holy cow, I have so many stories. But I'm not going to go into that. But I went like 2 or 3 weeks before convention, I got a call from my upline, Jimmy Smith, and said, George, yes, are you there? Yeah, of course, you are calling me. Remember I said that. Well, here I have the founders of the company on the other line. I said, really? I was thinking, I got in trouble? I did something wrong? And they said, yeah, what can I do for you? Congratulations, you hit the $1 million. 2 weeks before the convention, maybe 3, I don't remember exactly. I thought it was an impossible goal, because in a whole year I had not made $300,000. I want to tell you, any goal that you have can be reached. You can get the book 10X. Actually, The Magic of Scaling is a better book. I think Darryl Wilkerson just finished that book. It's an amazing book because it makes thinking big, force you to make big actions, to create big activities, to do things that you don't do normally. By the way, and like I said, you never quit. By the way, and it's funny, in the first company, I thought as soon as you signed the distributor agreement, because I was coming from real estate, it was an agreement that I couldn't quit. That's what I thought. Oh, I signed a contract. I cannot quit. That was in my subconscious. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because uh, there are always going to be obstacles. There are going to be problems with the company. And the company that was before, where we made over $8 million, when they changed the computer system for a whole month, they were not paying us right. I lost half my, oh no, like 70% of my group. And for those of you that were early enough in that company, probably remember. Can you imagine? They were not paying, and the people say the company is going to crash. And I stick with it because I knew what was happening. I stick with it. Well, it was probably not a month, probably was like 2 to 3 weeks, but for me, it was like a month. And we lost a lot of people saying that company is going to go out of business. And he didn't. He hit $1 billion later.
Hey,
Never, ever
George,
quit. Go ahead. Thank you.
if you're going back and forth with somebody, but then they stop answering you, do you still keep going with them?
Mark Jarnell, the guy that with the boots, he gave me. I asked him, when do you stop following up with somebody when that person died? But in a nice way, by the way. You don't call forcing them, just telling stories. But before you start following up, you say something very simple. You say to the person, "It's okay if I stay in contact with you." Rarely anybody say no. Say sure. And then once in a while, I call them or I was sending an email to, oh, this is something new that's happening. And that's why follow-up doesn't have a limit of how many times you follow up with that person. The only people that you don't follow up is people that if really they are very negative and toxic. Of course, you don't want that people in your team. That's the only time that I don't follow up. Lovey, how are you? You have your hand up.
Good morning, George. Thank you so much for constantly pouring into us. I'm so grateful for your wisdom and wow, what a story. So I know that you mentioned perseverance, but there's a few things that I got from that. How you pivoted, you consistently pivoted, and then you also were so resilient. So thank you for sharing that. The other thing is, you still get nervous. That is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really needed to hear that this morning. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for just constantly just sharing your wisdom with us. I always say that it's like a wisdom download.
Thank you, Lovey. Thank you very much. Okay, who else? Oh, okay. Hi, how are you? Go ahead. Sorry. Oh, you had your microphone on, I think, but I cannot hear you. Uh-oh, you had your hands up.
Are you talking to me, George?
Oh, no. Well, you can say it because Cindy, how are you?
Good morning. Well, you were speaking my language because I've been in as long as you have, and Marky Yarnell. And when you're talking about John K. Lynch, I was lucky enough to work with John in the last 2 years of his life. And I'm telling you, one of the things that I learned about being the best that you can be in network marketing. And you guys, I just found two more of those books. So they're actually out still. Some of the bookstores, you can actually reach out and find them somewhere. Some people have turned books in. If you haven't gotten the chance to read that book, or he had another one, being the best I think it was something about being the best you can be in MLM, and then the other one was network marketing. But you guys,
Yeah, the
it was
magic of
amazing.
prospecting. The magic of
Magic of
prospecting.
prospecting.
That was amazing
And
book too.
back then, we the company that I worked with John, we ended up filling a van once a month, and everybody was flying in from all over the United States. And because it was in California, I would just load up a van in our local area and pick some up on the way, all the way down. And we'd usually have 14 to 16 people that were at that event once a month, just because we called it a drive-in, they called it a fly-in. But whenever they had anybody that had a lot of knowledge and wisdom, you guys, and that's why it's important to get to the regionals and a lot of the events. I'm going to be lucky enough that they're going to be driving the van from San Jose through California, and they're going to be going right through my town. So we're going to be doing a part of the kinetic tour on the 22nd in Arroyo Grande, and Daniel and the team are going to stop for an hour, and we're going to make sure we're going to have a hydration station in our area, along with a taste and tasting tour for a lot of the locals. So way to promote it. I'm using the church parking lot. So you never know where you're going to find some of the biggest people in this industry, but I guarantee you there are a lot of pastors that when they leave their churches, you guys, they don't make a lot of money. And I'm watching a lot of them that are getting recognized on some of these other stages because they've learned that they've already got a huge network of people. And one of the things that I heard early on was you build the biggest networks, you're going to make the most money.
Yeah.
Same thing applies.
That's right. Thank you very much. And by the way, Mark Janelle was a pastor in Austin, Texas before, and because at the time there was a crisis, economic crisis in Texas, everybody left and he was broke and he was trying to sell his car lot to lot, but his car worth was less than actually what he could sell the car for, and they were foreclosing in his house. But then eventually he became, like they call him in the early 90s, the greatest networker in the world. Elizabeth, I think you have a question. I can see your hand.
I don't actually have a question, but I do want to say thank you so much. And your story is so riveting to me personally as an immigrant coming into this country. Just, the Pink Company where I was nothing further from like, way further over the cliff for anything that I would ever want to do with anybody, mainly from where I was coming from, especially at the time. But I think, and for those who maybe have never been in network marketing, oops. Okay, sorry, I think I had a call coming in. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
And
you can.
okay, and what is just so amazing is just how this is so true, because for me, and I think that sometimes it feels painful. I mean, for me, the desire of what I wanted was so huge, but there was nobody in my world who really knew what I wanted or thought, literally 90% of them thought I had lost my mind for sure. And it was a lot of pressure when you're younger, depending on your parents and things like that. But what is so true is just how simple the networking on the Pink side, it was practice, 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 and just repetitive, and it becomes a part of you. And I think after 25 years, I was going so fast that I never stopped to even, the time I thought if I turn back, I'm going to turn into salt, But everything you said is so true. And I think I just want to encourage everyone is how I think now is the time and even better. And yes, like you said, persistence and moving from one company, never giving up, because it's not the company, it's not the product. I think it's the idea, it is the elevation of humanity in this way. And that is the idea, which is bigger, and the rest of it is just a tool. So this is so powerful. Last thing I want to say is that, missing a call, like for those of us who are here, that's awesome. But I keep encouraging people, and I see Grace on here. I'm so proud of you. It's just never to miss a call, because you were talking, I couldn't write so faster because our creative mind just kicks in, and I bet you that a lot of us are having ideas or things that you thought you were going to do or things that you've not done, and it never ends. It doesn't matter if you're here every day, just write it down, and every day is just chipping, and every single thing that we desire will come to pass. So I am so grateful for every word of yours today, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much for your input, and it's totally true. And never to quit. Now, this is the book, by the way. It's out of print, but you can find it. There are a lot of things that are not applied today, because he's talking now. If you are building an international outside your city, national. If you're not spending at least $500 in long distance service, because at the time the long distance was 15 or 20 cents a minute, you are not doing your business national. There are things like that, but the basics of network marketing is and his prospecting book. I couldn't find it here. It's amazing. That one applied because it talks about all the ways to prospecting that still apply today. But again, those books are out of print. Somebody told me to get in contact with his family, that probably I can get a lot of these books. And this was a while ago. I had not done it.